Yeah, hello. Good afternoon, students. I'm audible?
Afternoon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
okay. So I hope this is your last class for today. Uh, so I'll just do a quick revision about what we did in previous class. So last class we started with the introduction to computer graphics, and we have seen that computer graphics has three main parts, that is modeling, rendering, and animation. Modeling is basically you're going to design a picture or a model by making use of different geometrical shapes. Rendering, so once the model is ready, you need to view it on the screen, so that is taken care by rendering. Then we have animation, wherein you have a series of models, so when you view it together it looks like an animation. Then the mapping, so mapping is basically in a computer you store all the data in a binary format, so hence there is a need to do a mapping of your programming language, whatever command you are writing uh, to the language understood by your computer. And similarly, so when you're trying to view any image, you can't see 0 and 1, right? You want to see the actual image, so that conversion is also taken care by this mapping. So then we saw what do you mean by computer graphics and image processing. Just a simple definition we have seen, wherein computer graphics is basically deals with the generation or synthesis of the image, and image processing is modification of your image. We started with different visual display devices, starting with CRT, that is cathode ray tube, and we have seen how it works, like electronic beam. So the electronic beam will hit the phosphorus coat, and based on the glowing thing, you are going to view your picture. And in order to view the picture continuously, you need to emit the electronic beam from your electronic gun. So based on that, we then started with raster scan display. So wherein in order to display your image, you are going to read the data about the image. So what is the data here? Is the intensity. Okay, the intensity values. Okay, at which pixel values, whether I need to increase the intensity so that you can view that image. And if there is nothing at that spot, then the intensity is 0. So the intensity values is stored in something called as a frame buffer or a refresh buffer. So you fetch the details from there and display it on the screen. So while displaying, you are going to scan row by row from top to bottom, and based on wherever you have a picture, so that intensity, so that particular pixel will have an intensity and it will glow, which means you are going to view an image at that instance. So you can see here in this example also, we have seen that you are trying to write a. So in this position, the intensity is low, whereas wherever we have this highlighted one, so there the intensity is high. So that's how we are going to view an image. Then small variation to that, we have seen random scan. So instead of scanning every row, so what we are trying to do is we are going to just focus at specific pixel where you have a pattern to be displayed. Okay, so in that case we call it as a random scan display. So here also you are going to make use of CRT. Okay, CRT, here also we are using CRT in order to generate your beam. So this is how it works. And then I just give a short description about color CRT monitor, like penetration method, shadow mask method. And in a penetration method, you'll have two layers, red and green layer, and based on how it penetrates, accordingly you're going to generate a picture which has two color, that is orange or yellow. And in a shadow mask method, you will be having three guns, that is red, blue, and green. Okay, and based on the combination of the gun, accordingly the color will be displayed. So now based on this, we can differentiate between your raster and the random scan. So in raster scan, the resolution is usually low resolution because you are scanning row by row and then fetching the intensity, whereas random scan you are focused towards a specific pixel. So in a random scan, it has a high resolution, and random scan is comparatively expensive compared to your raster scan. And modification is easy when you go for a random scan compared to your raster scan. So at your image, any modification need to that can be done easily with your raster scan. Sorry, random scan. Then solid pattern is tough to fill in case of a random scan. Solid pattern in the sense, say for example, I want to draw this box. Okay, so solid pattern is just like you're going to highlight the edges. So this is a solid pattern. So if you want to draw something like this with a solid pattern, so that is easier in case of a random scan because a specific pixel you can target, whereas in raster scan you are going row by row. So how you are going to find the intensity at each and every edge, and so when you are coming from first row to second row, okay, there is again small gap will be there. So how exactly you are going to do the filling? So that is tough when you compare your what is this solid pattern display with respect to your random or a raster scan. So it is tough when you are dealing with a raster scan, whereas it can be done in a much better way in a random scan display. Again, in random scan, only screen with a view is focused, say like whatever screen you have. If you have a pattern, so only for that pattern you are going to focus. Whereas when you go for a raster scan, you have to scan through all the rows. Doesn't matter whether you have your pattern only at the initial few rows, okay? You still need to scan it. Then then we have seen that in random scan you can go with only lines, right? It's only line drawing, whereas when you go for a raster you can go for a curved as well, right? So it doesn't have interleaving in a random scan because you're directly focusing to a specific intensity, whereas here there is a interleaving is there because you have to move from one row to another. And in your random scan you are making use of a beam penetration technology. In beam penetration is okay, we have seen that, no, a penetration method, okay, you are making use of that in random scan, and whereas in case of a raster scan you are making use of a shadow mask. Okay, shadow mask. So these are few differences with respect to raster and random scan. Okay, so one is with respect to resolution. Raster has low resolution, random has high. Then based on cost, raster is low expensive, random is expensive. Then based on modification capability, raster it is difficult to modify, random it is much easier compared to raster. Then filling of this solid pattern, it is easier in case of uh, it is easier in case of a raster scan, and it's tough in case of random. And only screen with a view is displayed in case of a random scan. Hence, you are not going through each and every pixel over there. Whereas in this case, you have to scan through every rows. And here there is no interleaving as we are focused towards only the specific pixels. Whereas here we have interleaving, and this your random scan make use of beam penetration technology, and raster make use of shadow mask technology. Okay, so these are the few differences with respect to raster and random scan display. So last class I told you to go through these visual display devices, few more visual display devices like flat panel, three-dimensional viewing device, and virtual reality system. Anyone explored about this? Nobody?
Not too much in depth, but yeah,
Yeah, a
I've
little
read
bit,
about that.
because you don't have much about that, but I wanted you people to know like what it is, even though we are not using it later on, but at least if you are aware, it's good for you. Yeah, would you like to share what you have explored?
Yeah, so flat panel displays are basically like our LCD or LED displays.
Yeah,
They display each frame at one instant.
okay.
And 3D, three-dimensional viewing devices are like a flat panel displays, basically, but they display two images in different polarizations at once.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make out depth. There's an amount of depth perception associated with it.
Okay. Then virtual
And
reality system?
the screens are placed such that one eye will see one screen and the other eye will see another screen, and it tracks basically where you are in space. So you
Exactly.
get a 3D space, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, when you're developing any virtual reality application, we have to take care like what view you are giving to your right eye and what view you are giving to your left eye. Only then the user will feel a realistic experience. You must have played any virtual reality games, right? Like even they use the same technology. It's not like same video is played to your both eye. So it's a different view based on right and left. It's so that feature they actually got it from our own our actual how our eye works, right? For a right eye you have different set of image. For a left eye you have different set of image. So if you see there is a slight variation. So same concept they have used even while going for designing virtual reality systems so that the user get a realistic experience. And flat TV, that is what we are using, right? Initially, if you see in the older days, you had a TV which is very, um, it was not flat, right? It was like you had various machine at the back end, and then it was going to display device because they're all dealing with the how to do the processing of the images as so that it can be displayed onto the screen. So that thing is reduced in case of a flat panel system. They are making use of some current electric like emission system, non-emission system, different categories they have specified. So based on what category you are dealing with, accordingly the display is viewed. So you can just explore more on that because we are not going in depth about it. So that's why I told you to explore because this is what you are actually using in a real world. So flat TV can also be flat panel system is also used in our tablet and other things because they don't need that much hardware. Uh, that much heavy hardware device to display your screen. So that technology is comparatively compact compared to the previous technology what we were using for displaying. So, okay, so let's start with today's class. So in today's class, I'll start with the raster scan system. So we have seen that how actually the in a high level like how the raster scan works. So now we'll see here. So we have mainly focused on this, right? So now we are going to see the entire system that how it works. So here it employs your raster scan system employs several processing unit, right? Like CPU, and you have some other special purpose processing unit called a display processor is also there. It will come in next slide. So we have several processing unit in addition to the CPU called the video controller. Here we have a video controller. This is again a processing unit, or you can even call it as a display controller. This is a kind of processing, okay, similar to your CPU. This is also deals with the processing, but mainly with respect to display of the image. So in this case, you have CPU, system memory, and a video controller, which is connected to each other via system bus, and your system bus is connected to IO device. Then we have a monitor, which is mainly used to display your image, and the intensity. You are displaying image with respect to intensity, right? When you are going for CRT. So video controller is directly connected to monitor. So in order to fetch the details like intensity values of each pixel, we make use of the frame buffer, right? Hope you remember from the previous class. So all the intensity values will be stored in a memory called a frame buffer. So your pixel intensity values is stored in a frame buffer. So where that frame buffer is stored, it is stored somewhere in this system memory. So no fixed area or memory is allocated in this case. So it is located somewhere in a system memory, your frame buffer. So your video controller via system bus, it will interact with the frame buffer, fetch the details, and then control the intensity of the beam and display your image on the screen. So this is how the raster scan system works. So again, some later stage there was a modification in this. We here the frame buffer is not fixed. You can even go for a fixed frame buffer. That is the only change here. In a system memory, a part of the memory is reserved or fixed for your frame buffer. So this will hold only the values of only the intensity values of the pictures, right? So your video controller, it is connected to the system bus, and also it is connected to your frame buffer directly, so that if you want to fetch your intensity values, it can directly contact the frame buffer, fetch the detail, and then display the image. It need not go via system bus and then search in a system like where the frame buffer is located, and then fetch your data. So here we have a direct access to your frame buffer in case of fixed frame buffer. Fine. So they are just a variation of your raster scan. Here you don't have any fixed memory for your frame buffer because it is scattered. It may be stored anywhere in the system memory. In this case, you have a dedicated memory for your frame buffer, and it is directly connected to your video controller. Hence, it need not go via system bus and then fetch it. It can directly fetch from the frame buffer and control the intensity of your electron beam. Okay, so next is video control refresh operation. Refresh operation. Why the refresh is required? I think before that. Okay.
Updating.
Yes, updated. So before I go to that slide, I'll just give a small explanation here. Video control operation, basically what we have a screen, right? So when you have screen, in this screen space, it is divided into coordinate, we have coordinate axis. So this is a screen where you want to display, right? And we have a coordinate axis called X and Y. Fine. And the lowest left corner. So this is the lowest left corner will be the origin. So this is our origin in this case. Your X value will increase from, so here at this point, both X and Y value are 0. X value will increase from left to right, and Y value, okay, will increase from low to high. So this is basically the range of your Y from 0 to some Y max, let's say. It depends on your screen, okay, what's the value of Y max or X max is. So let's say this is a X max. So we have values from 0 to X max, and here we have a value from 0 to Y max. So as we are going for a raster scan system, so whenever you need to draw a picture, the intensity value at a specific pixel position is needed to display the picture, right? So to do that, you are going to fetch your details from your you are going to fetch your details from your frame buffer. Okay, you are going to fetch your details from your frame buffer, which basically contain the intensity value of your pixel. So first, we are assuming that you are aware of X and Y max value of your screen. Okay, so you are aware of X max and Y max. It depends on the screen or which device you are using. So initially we'll set our register X, okay, value to 0 and register Y value to Y max. Why we are setting Y value to Y max here? So X is 0, Y is Y max. Will be we are somewhere here in the initial position. Why we are setting Y value to Y max? Which system we are dealing with? We are dealing with.
Ma'am, that
yes
corresponds to that point, ma'am.
Correct, because we are going for raster scan. What your raster scan does, it will scan your row from top to bottom, right? It will scan rows. What are these? These are just the rows of your screen, right? It will scan like this. Your raster scan will scan row by row, correct? Hence, the initial value is set to Y max and the initial value of X is set to 0, right? So this is our initial values. So then what you are going to do? You are going to X value. You are going to pixel by pixel. You are going to navigate pixel by pixel in your screen as well as you are referring to your frame buffer value, so that you are going to see if that particular X and Y value, okay, exist in your frame buffer. If yes, that intensity will be high. If no, the intensity will be low, right? So what you are going to do, you are going to add +1. Okay, so first pixel is done, then it will come here. It will check whether this pixel value is high or low in your frame buffer. If it is high, you are going to have a high intensity. If it is low, then no intensity or low intensity. Next, you will go to next pixel, which means it will be is equal to +1, right? Then you are going to check the intensity. Again, increase your X. It will be +1. So this you are going to continue till the value is equal to X max. Okay, till it reaches X max, you are going to continue this process. Which means what? Which means you are done with one row. Okay, you have scanned all the pixel of that row and you have compared the pixel value of that row with your frame buffer. If the value matches, if the value you are checking what is the value of the intensity for each pixel. If the value is high, then you are going to apply high intensity. If the value is low, you are going to apply low intensity. So this is for one row. So once you reach Sx max, next cycle, what will be the value of your X and Y now? We are done with first row, right? Our next job is to shift to next row.
X will also be 0, but Y will be Y max minus 1.
Exactly. X will be 0 and Y will be Y max minus 1.
Yeah.
Correct? So here initially it was Y max. Next row it is Y max minus 1. Similarly, Y max minus 2. So this you are going to continue till you reach Y equal to 0. So once you have this, again the same process is repeated. You are going to increase the X value one by one so that you can scan through every pixel in that row. When X value reaches X max, again you are going to decrement your Y value. That is, it will be Y max minus 2. So the same process you are going to repeat, okay, till you have, okay, Y equal to 0 and X equal to X max. Okay, you are going to repeat that process till you reach this condition. Your Y value you are going to decrement for each row. So once it reaches 0, your X value as usual you are going to scan pixel by pixel for the last row, right? Pixel by pixel until it reaches X max. So till your X value is X max and Y value is equal to 0, you are going to continue the scanning. So whatever scanning we are doing, you are going to repeat the scanning process so that your picture is visible on the screen. So once it reaches Y equal to 0, X equal to X max, again you are going to reset your X value to 0, Y value to Y max and repeat the process. Okay, so this is how you are actually scanning your pixel by pixel, row by row, and referring to your frame buffer in order to display the image. So now I'll come back to this. So what your raster scan generator does, it is going to make use of register X, register Y, which I just showed you here. Okay, and then the value it is going to search in a memory address. Okay, that address it will find, and in a frame buffer it will going to see what is the intensity value. So that will be stored in a pixel register. Okay, and that is then sent to your video controller to control the intensity of your beam. So this is how it works. So in order to understand this, I gave you this background explanation. I hope this diagram is clear now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So next is raster scan display processor. So I think nothing much explanation is there in this. It is similar to what we have discussed earlier. Here we have just one dedicated processor called display processor memory. Okay, so wherein the frame buffer it is mainly dealing with only the display of your image, any picture you are going to display. Like you just want a dedicated processor for that, then we are going for display processor memory. So what other thing it is doing is So first is our regular job, that it is going to digitize your picture and store it pixel value in a frame buffer. So whatever picture you are going to load into your system, it is going to digitize it, that is 0101, like that. It will convert it and store it in your frame buffer, right? In a frame buffer, based on what type of intensity it is, you are going to fetch it from your video controller is going to fetch it and display it onto the screen. So other than this, your video processor also does different tasks, like if you want to display a line in a specific style, say for example, I want to go for a dashed line. So that is possible when you go for a display processor memory, or when you want to have a thick line, you can define a style of your whatever design you are trying to do, whatever object you are trying to build. Okay, so that style can be defined when you go for a display processor. And again, okay, and again the coloring option is also, oh shit, I removed it. Fine. Okay. Yeah, so we have where I was. Yeah, you can go for a dotted line, or a solid line, or just a regular line, or you can define a different colors for different line. Maybe this is red, this is blue, green. So like that, you can define different colors to different lines. So all this type of extra functionality is provided by making use of your display processor, memory, and display processor. Otherwise, all other functionality will remain similar to what we have discussed in a previous 2 slides. Okay, so next is computer graphics software. Okay, I'll just use this one for that. So your computer graphics software okay, let's say this is computer graphics software is divided into 2 classes. Your computer graphics software is divided into 2 classes. So first is special purpose package. And a general purpose package. General programming package, yeah. We are dividing the computer graphics into 2 parts, that is special purpose and general programming package. So special purpose package is normally used by a non-programmer. Okay. Like you don't want to worry about the back-end part, like write a code, how actually you can build a model. So you don't want to worry about that. You want to directly draw a design or do a design, then you are going with a special purpose package. So what is the example for special purpose package? Without actually writing a code, you can still do a modeling and you can have your model ready for your application. So which application is there? Any example?
Blender.
Blender. How it works? I'm not aware of that. Blender?
You can model like how 3D modeling works and then animate it using a GUI.
So it is mainly used for, where it is used? To build a
Mainly
gaming
used
application
in,
or?
Yeah, 3D animation, you could say.
Animation, okay. Yeah, even in Flash is also there, wherein you can just drag and drop few things and you can get your animation ready in few seconds. Or you can go for a CAD. I think few students may be using this, right? CAD system. That is computer aided design. If you can do the design, or you can develop your own model, and here you don't need a background like how actually the model is built, right? So you can just make use of the object which is available and do your design. So that is so such application will come under special purpose package. And here it is general programming package. General programming package, as the name suggests, here it is basically for a programmer. Here it provide you with a different libraries which consist of different graphical function. Okay, you have different libraries which consist of graphical function, and there are different programming languages involved based on type of application you have selected. So you can go with C, C++, Java, and many more. Okay, so they are known as a general programming package, and this is special purpose package. So in our class, we will be dealing with the general programming package. Right? So next, general programming package, as I mentioned, it will provide you with the different functions. So which include the picture component. Okay, picture components like you want to draw a line, or you want to go sorry, or you want to draw some polygon, right? Or you want to build some object which is combination of your, okay, something like this. You want to build an object which is combination of set of other geometrical objects. So that is also done. And you have different functions which can be used to set colors. Okay, you can set colors, and you can do some kind of transformations. So all functions are already available. Okay, so you can do transformation or rotate your object and view, like how your object will view from top or from the bottom, from right, from left. So you can see the different view of your object. It's like a 3D of space. So wherein you can view the object at a different angle, and you can do the rotation of your object. You can rotate to 90 degree or things like that. You can do the rotation and transformation. You can change the orientation of your object. So all these things can be done by making use of the functions which are already available in a different packages. So the package which we are focusing is OpenGL. Okay. So if you are interested in virtual reality, you want to explore more on that, maybe you can go for VRML. So that is virtual reality modeling language. So that is also there, or Unity is also there. You can try that. But in our class, we'll be focusing on OpenGL graphic programming package. So what it actually does. So whatever graphic functions we have a programming language, okay, and you have a set of graphic function which is known as computer graphic API. API is nothing but application programming interface. It acts as an interface, okay, because it has different libraries and a function which helps you to write a code, okay, and it acts as a interface between your programming language and your hardware. Why we are writing this program? So that you can communicate with your hardware, right? So you want to display something on the screen, you can't directly display it. You need to communicate with your hardware, then your hardware will do a required processing, and then the image will be displayed on the screen. So your computer graphic API will act as an interface between your programming language and the hardware. Okay, so next we'll see computer graphic software. So this is from your textbook. So what we have here is, so whenever you are trying to design any picture, you want to draw any picture using your programming package. So first what you need to do is you need to give the geometric description of the object. Okay, if say for example, if your object is a box, then you need to specify the position of its corner. Right, if it is a box, then you need to specify, okay, what is the position of your corner. And if it is the cylindrical or a sphere shape, then you need to specify where the point is and what is the radius. Okay, such information need to be given. Say for example, you have a scene wherein you have not just one object, you can have more than one object. Okay, so we have this these two object in our screen. Let's say this is our object 1 and this is object 2. So we have two objects to be displayed in our scene. This is a simple object, but maybe you can consider, say for example, there is a furnitures and maybe a television is there in your scene. So there are two different objects. So first what you have to do is, first you need to model that object locally. Okay, instead of directly going to the scene, model that object locally. Okay, if there is a chair, then model the chair, like maybe 4 legs and things like that. You are going to model it with respect to a local coordinates, which is known as a modeling coordinates, or you can also call it as a local coordinates. So here we are modeling these two objects in a local coordinates. And then next step is, once the model is ready, you are going to place that model in the world coordinate. This is a main scene, okay, wherein you want all your components. Say for example, different furniture and television, which I said, if you want the different components to be placed into the screen. So first keep the model, keep that object ready in a separate screen. Okay, keep it ready, and then you can just add it in the local, with respect to local coordinate. You are going to design it, and then you are going to add it onto your world coordinate. In this case, for 2 object, we are going to place it. So while placing, you have to see what is the orientation of the object. Okay, and if you want to do a little bit of transformation, you need to do that, so that you know what type of a view you are expecting from that scene. Accordingly, you are going to do the transformation. So once that is done, then we are going for a next stage, which is viewing and projection coordinate. You need to project whatever design you have done, okay, to a different coordinate. Say for example, I want to display it onto my screen, a TV screen or a tablet, which is in a 2D format. Then maybe from 3D to 2D projection we are doing. So that projection coordinate is this. So that conversion is done. And then we are going to normalize. Why normalize? Like because it has to fit well no matter which device video display screen you are using. So normally we are going to normalize our coordinates from the values between the values 0 to 1 or -1 to 1, depending on type of the device you are using. We are going to normalize the coordinates values to either 0 to 1. In this case, we are normalizing it to 0 to 1, or you can normalize it to -1 to 1. So that is done. So once this is done, next you are going to give this device coordinate. So whatever coordinate in this normalized form is there, so that is given to your device, and with respect to what type of a display mechanism is used, the particular intensity value of each pixel is then plotted and displayed onto your display screen. So this is our display screen, right? So initially what we did, a simple object we have designed in their local coordinates, okay, by specifying the vertex and what is the size of what is the center point and what is the radius. All those things you are going to specify different properties, and then you have transformed it into your world coordinates, which is the main scene where you have a different objects you are going to position or and see their orientation and do the required transformation, and then you are going to project it, okay, into a for your viewing screen. We have again different type of projections, um, so that can be used. And then we need to normalize it so that it can be displayed to a different screen. So while normalizing, the coordinate values ranges from 0 to 1 or -1 to 1. So once that is done, you are going to display your image onto the video monitor. Okay. Okay. So next, so next topic in the graphic software is, so whatever I explained here, so that is what is it? Heading is coordinate representation. And next we have graphic function. So graphic function. So when you are trying to design any system, as I just told you in a previous slide, that you will have different libraries with a different predefined functions. Okay. So when I say graphic function, you'll have a function like graphic output, like how you want to display your device, and what is the graphic input. Are you using keyboard, mouse, joystick, depending on type of application you have developed. Okay. And then we have graphic output. Okay, graphic output. I have not explained anything about this, right? Graphic output primitive, it is basically the geometric sorry. Okay, so this is basically the geometric shapes which we are going to define. So, okay, so just do this. So here it is basically deals with geometric entities like how to identify a point in the space or in a screen, and a straight line, how we can draw the straight line. So different shapes, basically a polygon. So we are going to see different algorithm later on in the next chapter, and different shapes, curved line. So all these things will come under graphic output, and a filled area. Okay. Okay, so this will all come under your graphic output. It's basically a graphical shapes or a components which you are going to use to design your object, right? And then you have something called as a attribute. This is next is attribute. So attribute is with respect to your component. So what will be the attribute here is, say for example, you are drawing a line. You want to specify the style of the line. Okay, what style you are going to use? Is it bold, or is it thin, or is it dotted? So like that, you can specify a style. And if it is a shapes, you can specify the orientation, or you can specify the size. You can increase or decrease the size of your cube and position your cube at different locations. So all those things will define the properties of your whatever object you have used. And then you can go for different transformation. So transformation is basically with respect to size, position, and orientation. I think I mixed those two, right? So attribute is basically you are going to specify style. Okay, style. If it is a filled area, then what type of a pattern you are going to fill that area, the pattern used to fill the area. Okay, we are saying there is a area, it's a filled area. So filled area is what you are using to fill, the pattern, what pattern you are using. So that will define the attribute. And the color, okay, you want to give a color to your object. So that will say defined as an attribute. Then in a transformation, it can be size, position, orientation, the rotation of your object, all those things will come over here, transformation, rotation and all. And next you have functions for viewing. So here you are going to select the view of the scene. So in previous slide we have seen a scene, right? You have two objects and things like that. So you are going to select a view of the scene, and you are going to decide the type of the projection you want to use and the location on the video monitor where you want to display that particular view. So that is decided by viewing. Okay. So what we are trying to do here, select the scene. First step is you are going to select scene. So once the scene is selected, next you are going to type of projection. Select the type of, you are going to decide the type of projection you want to use. What are the different type of projection? Okay, so once the projection is used, and then you are going to location. Select the location on video monitor where you want to display your image, right? So these are the steps taken care in your viewing transformation. So these are the function. We already have a built-in function to do all these things. Input function, I already told, it is with respect to how you want to use your keyboard, your mouse, your joystick. So that is defined over there. So we have generic graphic functions like Graphic output and input. Output is what? You are going to define different shapes. You want to design a cube, you want to go for a curved surface, or you want to have a filled area, like, and then you want to place something on top of that. So things like that. So you can just do a basic geometrical shape, make use of basic geometrical shape to design a view. And then you can specify a property for each shape by making use of the proper attributes. Like you can specify color, you can specify style, pattern, and things like that. And then you can apply different types of transformations, like you can resize the image, or you can change the position of your image, change its orientation using transformation function. Then in viewing, you are going to decide what scene you want to use and the type of a projection you want to use, and the location on the video controller where you want to view your image. So all these things are taken care by using different computer graphic functions. Okay, so let's see. Let's see projections. Okay. So what are the type of projections here? So when I say projection, what are the two different types of projection? First is parallel, right? We have parallel projection, or you can go with the perspective projection. You can go with the parallel projection, or you can go with perspective projection. Only few projection I'll discuss. So in parallel projection, so line will be parallel to each other, right? So whatever object size is there, so same view you are going to get. Say for example, this is our object. Okay, so this is our object. So you are going to draw a parallel line like that. Okay, you are going to do a parallel line so that you are going to get the view over here. So this is the view. So when you go with a parallel projection, you will have lines which will be parallel to your object, which will be parallel to each other like this. These are the different lines which is parallel to each other, right? And whatever view you are getting, it will be of the same size as your object. Whereas when you go for a perspective, so here the lines will be approaching a specific or a fixed point. Say for example, if this is the monitor on which you are going to display your image, and this is a projection reference point. This is, let's say this is a projection reference point, and this is a monitor on which you are going to display your view. Okay, and again we'll consider same object, and this is our object. Right, and what I just said, the lines are approaching towards the fixed point. So this is a fixed point. So whatever line you are drawing, it will be like this. Okay, so what will be your object view here? It will be like this, right? It is smaller compared, it is, the size is smaller to your original object. So this will be our view on the monitor, right? So when I say projection, if it is a parallel projection, it will have the same size as your object, and the line will be parallel to each other. If it is a perspective, then the line will be focused towards a specific point. Okay, that is known as a projection reference point, and based on where it intersect with your monitor, you are going to display your view. Okay, and then okay, so in parallel, it is again divided into two types. Like basic projection I'll explain, so that when we are using some functions in your OpenGL program, it will be easy to understand. So again, the parallel is divided into two types, that is oblique and orthogonal. They are again type of projections, okay, oblique and orthogonal projection. So orthogonal, as the name suggests, 90 degree, right? Lines are parallel to each other and make an angle of 90 degree with the view plane, right? Let's consider the same example. You have an object, lines are parallel to each other, okay, and this is our view plane. They are at an angle of 90 degree with the view plane. So this type of projection is known as a orthogonal projection, right? Lines are parallel to each other and they make a angle of 90 degree with your view plane. This is a view plane. So similarly, when you go for oblique, so here also line will be parallel to each other because it comes under parallel, right? So hence the lines are parallel to each other but are inclined with some degree with the view plane. If this is our view plane, so line will be something like this. It's parallel to each other. They are parallel to each other, but they are inclined at some angle, right? So for example, this is my object. Sorry. Their lines are parallel, but they are inclined to each other at some angle. I think I should show a little bit more inclination, I guess. Okay, so they are parallel to each other but are inclined at some angle to your view plane. This is our view plane. Okay. Okay, is it clear? The basic projections. So we have two types, parallel and perspective. So we have seen in parallel, the lines are parallel to each other and usually the objects and the view are similar if have almost the same size. And in case of a perspective, the whatever projection you are doing, it will be focused. The lines will be focused towards a specific point called as a projection reference point. Okay, and you can see there is a change in the size of the object, okay, when you are viewing it on your view plane. And the parallel projection is divided into two types, oblique and orthogonal. In orthogonal, the lines are parallel to each other, but they are perpendicular to your view plane, okay, view plane. Whereas when you go for an oblique, again the lines are parallel to each other, okay, and they are inclined with some angle with respect to your view plane. Okay, so I'm done with the theory part. So next is simple OpenGL. I have shared a link with you to how to install OpenGL. Anybody tried it?
Yes, ma'am, but then I got this particular error message. So when I'm doing the file new from template, then I go to projects, new GLUT project. And then
just OpenGL project, no? Why GLUT? GLUT project is not required. Just OpenGL also it should work.
Right. So what I'm doing is, so I got this, and then I press next, and then I'm getting this particular error message that says the path you entered seems valid, but the wizard can't locate the following GLUT's library file, GLUT32 in it.
Okay. Okay, I'll just quickly, I think I'll share my screen. I'll stop this.
Okay.
Okay. So first thing what you have to do is you have to install code blocks that you have done. I'm using code block. You can use any editor. So in this case, I'm installing code blocks. So wait. Code block, I'm using this. Code block 20.03 Ming GW. Okay, this setup is required. You can't just go with a basic code block because we are going with a you want to develop a OpenGL project. So we have to go with Ming GW setup.
Yeah, I did everything that was shown in the video.
Yeah, I'll get back to that. So once this is done, this I'm explaining to everybody. Okay, so once you download this and then install in your system code block, and then you have to download. Okay, yeah. Then I downloaded this. You can just in a Google you can try, type FreeGut MinGW 3.00. Okay, you will get a link to this zip file. Download it. Okay, this is done. So first step is download and install code block. Next step, download your FreeGut, this folder.
I did that
Okay,
as
just
well.
in Google you can type, you will get it. Okay, yes. Once that is done, so from lib file, if you are making use of 64-bit system, then from x64 you need to copy these two files. Okay, and if you are going with a 32-bit, then you are going to copy these two files. Okay, the file name is same, but depending on your system, you have to select either these two files or these two. Fine. Yes, you said you have an issue now. Maybe you can try with this. So this you are going to copy and you are going to save it in the library folder of your code block.
Yeah, I just saved it in the program files. I didn't save it in program files into 86.
Not
You've
it.
done that too.
So that no, even mine is program file, right? In program file, code block. So wherever you have your code block, you have to just go there, and in MinGW, you can just go to library, okay? And then if you copied from x64, then accordingly you have to paste it here. So here you can paste it, or within a library you can just paste it. It doesn't matter. Similarly, from your include file, okay, I close that window, right? So from library, you are going to copy the files, and again from this bit. From library, you copied these two files, or from x64, depending on which operating system you are using. So once that is done, then go to include. Okay, inside GL, you have some set of files. You are going to copy that, and you are going to paste it inside include GL folder here. You are going to place it over here. Fine. So from include you include GL, whatever content is there, you are going to copy from your FreeGlut to MinGW. Then what we have, so we are done with include, we are done with bin, library. Then from bin again, if it's 32, you can go with this, or you go with x64, copy this thing, and then store it in your bin folder, right? So here you can copy paste it. So next is DLL file, right? So in a FreeGlut, DLL file is I finished now. Sorry, this DLL file you need to copy it to your Windows, right? I missed it. In a Windows, Windows folder is there, right? In Windows, you can directly paste it, or you can go to this one. This is sys WW64, right? So in this, you are going to paste that DLL file. So once this is done, in code blocks, go to share. Okay. So it is just the matter like where you are storing your files. Okay, like for few you can just copy it as it is, or for few you have to copy from the x64 folder. Even I faced the same issue. Initially, I just copied the file as it is and pasted. I referred few videos, but it was not working. Then I referred to this latest video which I shared with you, wherein they are copying from a x64 and it is copied in a similar folder in your code blocks as well. Then in this case, you can go to Wizard, and here I think it's glut. Yeah, in Wizard script, right click, go to properties, okay, go to security, and all application you can just select. You can click on edit, select all application and say full control, right? And select all restricted application. You need to give full control.
Okay, so we can do that to the other file in that video which is getting edited.
Which file? One more
It was
file
like
is there. No, you have to do it for both. One is glut.cbp, I guess, that and this file. You need to do this permission change.
Yeah, they need to be. It needs to be replaced with free glut.
Yes, and then you can just open this. I think I have to open with admin permission. You can just open it in your notepad and then Control H. You'll get this replace glut32 with free glut. So that you have to do. Right. Once that is done, one more file you have inside code block. Go to template. There you have glut.cbp. Here also you have to change the permission similar to how you did for your wizard.script. And again replace your glut32 with a free glut. So this is again located in the same location, that is code block, template, free glut. Your wizard was located in code block, template. It's one more folder, wizard, glut, wizard.script. Fine. So once you do these things, then I think it should work fine. So when you open your code block, then you can just go to file, new. Okay, I'll just close this. Okay, so you will get this window once you open your project, right? First time when you open your code block. So then you can just click on create new project. Then you can just directly go to, we are going for OpenGL project, right? So this is OpenGL. So click on OpenGL and okay. Next. So you'll have some path you can just give. So this path, I'll change it to program files, blog, GW. Okay, so inside this. And then maybe a demo one. Okay, so like this, you will get a file, you will have a main. So in this here, you can just write your code. So if you are getting some error, then maybe you can just go to setting, compiler, like if you're not able to find the compiler, things like that. Then go to setting, compiler, then select tool, chain, executable. So here make sure it is pointing to C program file, code block, MGW. Okay. If not, then you go to the location, like wherever your MGW folder is located, and paste the path over here. Then in additional path, if it's not showing, maybe you can add your free glut location. Okay, so in a D drive I have. Okay, so this I can. So that you can add over here. So that will solve your compilation issue. So these things you need to do. Just go through the video again, but instead of copying from x64, if it is not working for you, then don't copy the files from x64. Copy the files which is outside that folder. Okay, and then try. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please everyone try to install this it is required later on, like when we are going with the theory, and we can do theory and practical parallelly. Okay, so whatever we are teaching, we can just execute and see that any algorithm is done. So once algorithm is done, same thing we can execute parallelly, like I can do from my side, you can do from your side, and we can see how actually it works. Okay, so please make sure you complete the installation. So this is easier one. I found like code block with OpenGL is easy to install. So you can just try this. And if you're using Ubuntu also, it is possible. So you can just see how we can install OpenGL in Ubuntu, and you can try that. Okay, code block is just editor. It doesn't matter. It's not necessary that you have to go with that. But I'm using it. So if you have any issue with respect to this, maybe I can help, because I'm also using the same editor and software. Okay. So any issue with respect to installation, maybe you can just in a chat section, you can inform me. So maybe we can come online, only that student and me, and let's see what's the issue in your system is. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So please try to install. Next class we'll see. I'm going to start with the next module, that is graphic primitive output. So till now, whatever we have discussed, it is a background theory with respect to computer graphics. All basics we saw, right? How the view is displayed and what different display devices. Video display devices we are using, and different system like how raster scan works. So all those things we have seen, they are all with respect to hardware devices. And in software device, we discussed like there are libraries and the functions available to do different activities, like to draw a design, to perform transformation, and to do a viewing. Viewing, this is you're going to projecting it and then view it on the screen, right? So all those things we are going to learn in our next modules. So our first module, that is introduction module, is done. So next module, I'll be starting with few algorithms to draw a line, and we'll see, like based on how much we can do, we'll try to finish. But I want you all to please install and keep the OpenGL ready, so that once one algorithm is done, we'll try to implement it and see how it looks. Okay, we'll do it parallelly. So I don't want to do continuous 1.5 hour theory class. We can do little practical and theory combination. Fine. Okay, then I'm done with today's class. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. I'll close this. So stop the recording. Yeah, class